Am I the a-hole for refusing to reconcile with my sister after she falsely accused me of SA and destroyed my relationship with my family? This story takes place 7 years ago. At this time, I, 18M, and my biological sister, 15F, had always gotten into arguments. Ever since we were young, there was this constant, suffocating friction between us. Our disagreements would usually start over small, petty things: who got to use the computer, who left their shoes in the hallway, or who was taking too long in the bathroom. But those minor sparks always blew up into massive, screaming matches because we simply just didn't get along. There was no foundation of sibling bond there, just mutual resentment. Our family dynamic was already complicated and packed to the brim. At the time, my father was in his third marriage. His new wife brought 3 daughters into the mix from her previous relationship. So, suddenly, I had 4 younger sisters in total under one roof, my 1 biological sister and 3 stepsisters. Managing that many personalities in a single household was chaotic enough, but the tension between my biological sister and me made the environment entirely toxic. On top of that, my father was military, which meant our lives were ruled by strict rules, high stakes, and frequent relocations. Not long before the breaking point, we all got sent to a military station in Japan. Living on a secure military installation overseas amplified everything. We were isolated from our extended support systems, stuck in close quarters, and forced to interact constantly. One day, during a summer before school started, the constant fighting reached a boiling point. The domestic peace had completely shattered, and our parents had finally had enough of the screaming matches. They called us 3 teenagers, my biological sister, my teenage stepsister, and me, into the common area for a serious intervention. They sat us down and calmly told us that the situation had become entirely unmanageable. They delivered an ultimatum: because of the relentless, toxic fighting, one of us would be sent back to our families in the United States. It was a massive, life-altering threat, but they were dead serious. After days of heavy discussions, tears, and tense family meetings, it was ultimately decided that my biological sister would be sent back to live with our biological mother in the States, while the rest of us stayed behind in Japan. When the school year officially started, there was a brief sense of relief in the house. I was starting the 12th grade, my final year of high school, looking forward to graduation and planning my future. My teenage stepsister was entering the 10th grade, and back in the United States, my biological sister was starting her freshman year of high school. For a few months, the ocean between us seemed to fix the problem. The house was quiet, my grades were stable, and I finally felt like I could breathe without bracing for an argument. Then, a few months into the school year, the floor dropped out from under my life. I walked into the house after a normal day, and my parents called me into their room. The look on their faces was entirely cold, detached, and heavy. They locked the door behind me and said those dreaded words: "We need to talk." To my absolute shock and horror, they informed me that my biological sister had just accused me of SA. She had contacted them from the United States and claimed that it was done years ago when we were just young kids. My brain completely short-circuited. The sheer weight of that accusation left me breathless. I felt dizzy standing in their room, listening to them lay out a monstrous lie that could easily end my future, land me in prison, and destroy my reputation forever. My parents sat there staring at me, asking me directly about what she could possibly be talking about. They wanted to know if there was ever anything that occurred between us. I had to frantically search my memories, panicking, trying to figure out what could have been twisted into this nightmare. The only incident that had ever happened in our entire childhood was when I was 11 years old. I had overheard something highly inappropriate on the internet, and without understanding the weight of it, I repeated those inappropriate words in front of her. Our parents found out back then, and I got severely apprehended for it. I was disciplined, I was thoroughly educated on why it was wrong, and I was taught my lesson. That was it. It was a stupid, immature mistake by an 11-year-old child who didn't know any better, and it had been handled and put to rest years ago. But now, she was weaponizing that past event to construct a horrific fabrication. My parents and my 3 younger stepsisters already learned and knew that my biological sister is a pathological liar. She had been caught multiple times in massive, elaborate lies before she was sent away. She lied about her grades, she lied about things she broke, and she lied to get people in trouble just to see the fallout. Yet, despite knowing her history of severe dishonesty, my parents looked at me and delivered their verdict. They told me that due to this accusation, my entire life inside the house was changing. They told me that I was no longer allowed to babysit or be left alone with my 2 youngest siblings, who were still in elementary school. Furthermore, they mandated that I was never allowed to be alone in the house at all. I had to always be accompanied by my teenage stepsister or have a fully supervising adult in the room with me. I was essentially being put on house arrest and treated like a dangerous predator in my own home. When I felt the blinding unfairness of it all, I called them out. I looked at my father and stepmother and demanded to know why they were actively choosing to believe a known pathological liar over their own son. They looked back at me with defensive, clinical expressions and said, "We don't believe her, but we have to take this seriously." The hypocrisy of their statement made my blood boil. The anger and frustration inside me flared up, and my response to them was blunt: "If you take this seriously when you know she's lying, then you are just fueling her fire more. You are giving her exactly what she wants." But my words fell on deaf ears. The fallout of her lie spread like a cancer through the extended family network. Even though my parents claimed they didn't officially believe her, the rumors spread across the ocean. Suddenly, phone calls stopped coming. Family gatherings became awkward, and people looked at me with immediate suspicion and disgust. This led to my being completely shunned by most of my family on both my mother's side and my father's side. It was an incredibly lonely, dark period of my life. I was an 18-year-old kid trying to finish high school while carrying the invisible, agonizing stigma of a false accusation. The only people who stood firmly by my side throughout the entire ordeal were one aunt, one uncle, and a few close cousins who refused to participate in the slander. They were my only lifeline. Fast forward 2 years later. I was 20 years old, and I was about to be officially shipped out into the military. I was staying with my aunt and uncle, the ones who had seen through my biological sister's lies from day one and had protected me when the rest of the world turned its back. I was packing my gear and preparing to start my career when my phone rang. It was a call from my biological mother. When I answered, her voice was shaking. She told me that my biological sister was currently admitted to a hospital after attempting suicide. I sat on the edge of my bed, holding the phone, feeling a cold numbness. I asked my mother how this situation pertained to me, keeping my voice completely flat. My biological mother knew exactly how I felt about my sister, and she knew I had cut off all contact. My mother then broke down crying on the phone. She explained that while my sister was in the hospital recovering from the incident, the crushing weight of her choices caught up to her, and the absolute truth finally came out. My biological sister admitted to the doctors, counselors, and our mother that she had entirely fabricated the SA accusation. It was a complete lie from start to finish. Immediately, my mother began sobbing into the receiver, apologizing to me over and over again for ever doubting me, for the alienation, and for the pain our family had caused. I asked her why my sister would ever do something so malicious to her own brother. My mother whispered that my biological sister's exact reasoning for the lie was, he seemed so happy over there. She had looked across the ocean, saw that I was enjoying my life in Japan with our stepsisters while she was stuck living back in the States, and decided out of pure, unadulterated malice to ruin my happiness. She wanted to destroy my life because she couldn't stand the fact that I was content. I sat there listening to the explanation, and honestly, I thought nothing of it. I didn't feel a sudden rush of relief or a desire to celebrate. The damage had already been done, the scars were already there. I simply accepted my mother's apology calmly, thanked her for the phone call, and hung up to continue packing my bags for the military. Fast forward to today. I am now 25 years old. I have completely moved on with my life, built a solid career, and established my own independence. However, I have absolutely not forgiven her, nor do I ever plan to. I have served almost 6 years in the military now, a profession built on honor and trust, things she tried to strip away from me. Over the last few years, as the truth settled in, most of my extended family members have crept back into my life. They have tried to apologize, or did explicitly apologize, for everything that happened with my sister. They all try to rewrite history now, telling me, oh, we didn't believe her for a second, we just didn't know what to do. But along with those apologies comes a relentless, frustrating pressure. My same family keeps on hounding me, asking if I would ever be willing to just sit down with her, have a coffee, and talk it out to find closure. Every single time they bring it up, I shut it down instantly. I always refuse, telling them the exact same line, I love her as a sister because of our shared blood, but I will never like her as a person. Recently, the pressure escalated. My sister apparently told several family members that she is finally willing to patch things up with me and move past the drama. But there was a massive catch. She stated that she would only do so if I apologized to her about how I handled the situation and for cutting her off. When my aunt passed this message along to me, I outright laughed in her face. I looked at her and said aloud, definitive, hell no. The audacity of a person who tried to ruin my life demanding an apology from me is completely mind-boggling. My family just won't let it go, though. They keep on hounding me, using the emotional manipulation tactic that she is my only real biological sibling. But to me, biology doesn't mean anything after that level of betrayal. I have 3 younger sisters, my stepsisters, who stood by me, who still view me as their older brother with absolutely no issues, and who treat me with respect. I am now an uncle to one of my stepsister's new baby son, and I love my role in their lives. I do not want her to feel that I have any moral or familial obligations to sit down with my biological sister to fix things. The seriousness of her actions cannot be overstated. She played with my freedom, my life, and my mental health out of pure spite. But my family is still text bombarding me and whispering at gatherings that I should just mend things since that is my blood, and blood is family. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to reconcile with my bio sister after she falsely accused me of SA? Update. First off, I want to thank everyone for the support, messages, and comments I received after my original post. I honestly did not expect that many people to respond, let alone believe me. This situation has followed me around for years, and after hearing variations of, that's still your sister, or, you should just let it go, over and over again, it really messed with my head. Reading comments from people who understood why I refused to reconcile made me feel less insane about the whole thing. A lot of people asked what exactly my family expected me to apologize for, so I'll explain that first because apparently even now they still think there's fault on both sides. According to some family members, I was supposed to apologize for trying to turn the family against her after the accusation came out. That accusation alone already irritated me because I never tried to turn anyone against her. I defended myself. There's a huge difference. I wasn't going around starting rumors or trying to destroy her reputation. I was an 18-year-old being accused of something disgusting and life-ruining by my own sister. Of course I defended myself when people started treating me differently. The second thing they wanted me to apologize for was the inappropriate comment I made when I was 11 years old. I already addressed this in my original post, but somehow people in my family still drag it up like it happened yesterday. Back then I repeated something sexual I saw online without fully understanding what I was saying. I got punished immediately, was taught why it was wrong, and apologized for it years ago. It was handled at the time. Yet after my sister made the accusation, some relatives suddenly started treating that childhood incident like it was proof of something darker. That part still pisses me off honestly. A stupid comment made by an immature kid somehow became evidence for people desperate to justify why they believed her in the first place. The biggest update happened during the holidays a few months ago. I went back home to visit my dad and stepmom. At the time they were still together, and things between me and my father had improved somewhat over the years. We weren't incredibly close, but we were talking more consistently and he had apologized multiple times for how he handled everything when the accusation first happened. I genuinely thought the visit would be normal. The second I walked into the house and saw my biological sister sitting on the couch, I knew immediately something was wrong. Nobody warned me she would be there. Nobody even gave me the option to decide whether I was comfortable with that situation. Apparently my family thought surprising us into the same room would somehow magically lead to reconciliation. I didn't even fully walk inside before I turned around and started yelling. I was angry, embarrassed, and honestly felt betrayed more than anything else. My dad tried stopping me at the door saying we all needed to move forward eventually, while my stepmom kept insisting my sister wanted to talk things out calmly. The problem is that reconciliation only works when both people actually acknowledge the damage done. That was never the case here. Even after admitting she lied, my sister still somehow believes she deserves an apology too. Not just for the comment I made when I was 11, but because she genuinely thinks I ruined her relationships with the family afterward. I left immediately and booked a hotel nearby with my own money because I refused to stay under the same roof with her. The amount of backlash I got afterward was unreal. My phone was blowing up non-stop with relatives saying I overreacted, that she was trying, and that I was making healing impossible by refusing to sit down with her. One family member actually told me, "She's extending an olive branch and you're acting childish." The olive branch apparently included me apologizing first. Absolutely not. I stayed in that hotel the rest of the trip and only visited my father during times when she was not there. The whole situation honestly confirmed that some people in my family still don't understand the seriousness of what happened. False accusations like that do not just disappear after someone admits they lied. For years I was treated differently by relatives. People looked at me differently. Conversations stopped when I entered rooms. Some family members avoided leaving their kids around me. Even though nobody openly accused me to my face after the truth came out, the damage was already done. That kind of thing permanently changes how people see you. Another thing that came out recently is that my sister apparently continued lying long after the accusation against me. I found out through relatives who still stayed in contact with her that she has made multiple false accusations against other men over the years. Some were against ex-boyfriends, some against random people she argued with, and apparently one situation even involved another extended family member. I don't know all the details because honestly I stopped asking after a certain point. It became too exhausting hearing about constant chaos surrounding her life. What shocked me more was learning how many people tried helping her over the years only to end up cutting her off eventually too. For a long time I was painted as the cruel brother who refused to forgive his struggling little sister. Meanwhile multiple family members were quietly dealing with the same manipulation, lying, and emotional destruction that I experienced years earlier. Eventually even my parents reached a breaking point. My father admitted to me recently that once my sister started living with them for extended periods again as an adult, he finally saw what everyone else had been describing for years. Constant lying over small things, creating conflict between people, twisting conversations, playing victim whenever confronted, and refusing accountability for anything. My biological mother also finally hit her limit. For years my mother defended her no matter what happened. Even after the false accusation came out, she still treated my sister delicately because she blamed her mental health and suicide attempt for a lot of the behavior. I think guilt played a major role in that too. Now my mother is kicking her out of the house. From what I was told, the final straw involved lies about money and another accusation towards someone outside the family that completely fell apart after evidence proved she fabricated parts of the story again. My mother called me afterward crying and apologizing for probably the 5th time in my adult life. This time did feel more genuine. Not because she suddenly fixed everything, but because for the first time she stopped defending my sister while apologizing to me. Previous apologies usually included explanations, excuses, or requests for understanding. This conversation didn't. She admitted they failed me badly and said she understood now why I never trusted the situation again after everyone turned on me so quickly. I honestly didn't know how to respond. Part of me appreciated finally being acknowledged properly, but another part of me still remembers being 18 years old and treated like a danger inside my own home because of a lie. That's not something a single apology fixes. A few people also asked whether my sister herself was abused or assaulted at some point because sometimes false accusations come from unresolved trauma. To my knowledge, no. As far as I know, she was never SA'd by anyone. We both had rough childhood moments because our household was not exactly stable growing up. There were definitely physical punishments that crossed lines sometimes, and periods where things got neglectful, especially when our parents' marriages were falling apart. But there was never any known SA. That obviously doesn't excuse what she did regardless. At this point I am fully no contact with her permanently. I don't stalk her social media, ask about her constantly, or involve myself in her life anymore. If relatives bring her up too much during conversations, I usually shut it down immediately. I spent too many years carrying anger over this situation already. I've also gone low contact or no contact with some extended family members who still refuse to fully acknowledge what happened. A few people still insist she was young too, or families should stay together. That mindset honestly irritates me because being young does not erase consequences for something that serious. One accusation could have destroyed my entire future before adulthood even started. Military background checks alone could have become a nightmare if things escalated differently. Relationships, jobs, friendships, all of it could have disappeared because someone decided they were jealous and angry. That isn't sibling drama. That's life-altering behavior. The positive side of all this is that therapy has genuinely helped me more than I expected. I started going a few years ago mostly because anger from this situation started bleeding into other parts of my life. Trust issues, defensiveness, constantly expecting betrayal from people close to me, all of that became normal for me without realizing it. I'm in a much healthier place now than I was back then. I still have a strong relationship with my stepsisters, and honestly they're the reason I stopped caring about the real sibling comments from certain relatives. Those girls stood by me even when adults around them were acting differently toward me. I'm close with all of them still, and becoming an uncle recently has honestly been one of the happiest things that's happened in my life. So when family members try guilt-tripping me by saying, she's your only real sibling, it doesn't work anymore. Blood alone doesn't automatically create trust or respect. At this point reconciliation isn't even something I want. I don't hate her, but I also don't want her involved in my life. Those are two different things. I genuinely hope she eventually gets serious mental help and figures her life out because clearly something is deeply wrong there, but I don't need to personally participate in that process anymore. I made it clear that I have gone no contact with my sister and a few family members, but I have been in therapy for a few years and am trying to allow people back in after conversations. Thank you everyone again for your messages and thank you for believing in my story. I will update you guys if anything else happens.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Daily Tales Update.